manifold are thy works. In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy riches. So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping, innumerable, both small and great beasts. There go the ships. There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein. The glory of the Lord shall endure forever. The Lord shall rejoice in his work. Oh, hello everybody. Glad you've joined us, especially seeing we have such a fascinating subject for our interest. If I needed a text for our topic, the psalmist has certainly provided one. Psalm 104, verse 26. There go the ships. Ships. Now there's a topic for you. Just one word, and in the imagination or the memory 1,000 images leap to life. The seven seas, and none of them alike. The noisy, splashing spray of an Arctic ocean, and the quiet of a midnight tropical calm. 1,000 teeming ports, and in between, discovery, disaster, hardship, commerce, travel, and who knows, perhaps romance as well, all in one word, ships. There go the ships. The magic of the psalmist's phrase fires the imagination of every boy who's ever watched the wonderful world of ships go by. Liner or tug, the thrill is there. And what's full of heart for the ancient mariner? It awakens 1,000 memories of as many journeys to as many lands. To the old salt, nothing in all the world can compare to the feel of a rolling boat, or to the bite and taste of a sea-soaked wind. Yes, there go the ships, even though the wistful old seaman no longer goes with them. But how did it all begin, this traffic of the seas? Well, really, no one knows. Even the origin of the word ships itself is lost in time. What do you think? Did water transport begin on some distant day when, say, a terrified man clung suspiciously to a floating log? Perhaps the world's first sailor wasn't a volunteer. Necessity may have conscripted him. Wouldn't it be interesting to know who lashed the first raft together? Obviously it happened long before Noah built the ark. One thing is certain. In those first days of conquest over water, there were no diesel engines, no thermonuclear marvels, only timber and the strength of men. Often it must have been muscle against mountainous seas. Thrice I suffered shipwreck, said the Apostle Paul. He knew something of man's struggle against the sea. Night and a day I have been in the deep, he told the Corinthians. Ancient carvings and drawings show ships with as many as 5 banks of oars, to which scores of slaves were chained. Manpower was everything, and in some instances it still is. Think of the Eskimo in his kayak. Often he must paddle furiously against strong currents. His craft, covered with the skins of seals, is light to carry, but fragile against the pressures of the jagged ice. Civilization moves slowly across the frozen waste, but the Eskimo makes good speed in his little craft. For him, manpower is still vital. Then there's the Indian in his birch bark canoe. Curiously, his craft is very much like that of his Polynesian cousins, and skill must be matched with physical strength if he is to arrive at his village. Here again, manpower is really important. There is danger, perhaps death in these waters, and the native knows it. Does he ever long for the white man's engine so that his weary limbs might rest? The stronger his muscles, the swifter his journey. He paddles as his ancestors did, his only hope to make a safe landfall and eat with his brothers. Here now are the up-to-date versions of the kayak and canoe, the skiffs and rowboats of today. They, too, are boats that depend on manpower, for without men and oars, they can only drift with the tide. And is there a lesson here for us? Are there not rowboats in the fleets of mankind? Yes, there are human rowboats, the kind that depend on manpower, ships that travel little distance and which require favorable weather to manipulate. Their only resource, their own strength. unable to cope with the storm, limited in their ability to fight the tides and the currents. Do you remember the well-known hymn, Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross"? We used to sing this often when I was a lad, and I still remember the lines so appropriate. "The arm of flesh will fail you, ye dare not trust your Lord." I know now what the poet really meant. Human strength is not enough. But there are other ships we must think about. One marvelous day, the secret of using the wind to propel his craft through the water dawned upon man, and in a moment the glorious era of the sailing vessel had dawned. How primitively did it begin? Well, can you imagine early man lashing the skin of the animal to a pole, and in this way harnessing the wind, and for the first time tasting the thrill of speed on water? And who discovered the technique that was to find its perfection in the famous blue noses or opium-carrying China clippers? Could it have been the ancient Chinese, whose junks remain to this day? How was it that in another hemisphere men found exactly the same secret, and were setting out by sail to find and conquer new worlds? Leif Erikson, for example, in his Viking longship sailing the northern latitudes to find a brand new continent. And later, as this painting from the famous John Ross Robertson collection shows, Christopher Columbus relied on the winds to push his fleet of three with a total of only 258 tons across the treacherous seas to a new world. He and his men were brave and daring, but they were nevertheless creatures of the wind and the weather. Winds that sometimes blow too hard, and sometimes didn't blow at all, sometimes blowing for a good cause, and sometimes driving the Santa Maria, the Nina, and the Pinta towards the reef and possible disaster. But men were not always so dominated by the wind. As time passed, they shaped their ships to travel faster and farther, so that they became things of sleek beauty, and seamanship improved too. Man even learned to harness opposing winds, to make progress against the wind by zigzagging or tacking, like a cyclist rides from side to side up a steep hill. He could turn adverse wind and weather to his help. As exhilarating as it was, the era of the sailing vessel couldn't last. Even though masts grew taller and the fully rigged ship might carry as many as 31 sailors, a new day had come. Yes, there go the ships, and I think of men and women again. Think of them as ships on the sea of life, ships sailing toward an unexplored horizon, so dependent upon the push of many winds. For the parable of the sailing ship is this: no wind, no weather, and no progress. Only the doldrums, and a helpless drifting to the shores of nowhere. And any sailor knows how disastrous that can be. Isn't it true that some men's lives depend on circumstances? A favorable wind, and say they're really going places. They can even face a good blow with a bit of judicious tacking. But when there is no breeze, not only the sea of life, but the ship of the soul is in deadly calm. What is needed, of course, is an inner driving power. And now comes the lesson of power of locomotion. It had to happen. Steam power. In the 18th century, a famous seaman and inventor named Captain Thomas Savery outfitted an oversized rowing boat with a vacuum steam engine. And the Admiralty wasn't really interested, and neither was anyone else except those who were driven to experiment until they met with success. In 1819, the steamship Savannah crossed the Atlantic, and the age of the steamship was born. What a crossing that must have been. True, her maximum speed was only 6 knots an hour, and her engines were only used for part of the voyage. But in her wake was a whole new age of water transport. Speed and safety were now twin possibilities. Lordly leviathans of the sea, undreamt of by the psalmist, became a reality. Floating cities with famous names were cheered from hemisphere to hemisphere. Every liner sliding down the waves was larger and swifter than its predecessor. From those primitive boats called coracles, made of reeds and smeared with pitch, have strung giants of more than 80,000 tons and over 1,000 feet long. Yes, there go the ships that have power within themselves, tremendous power, a power that both controls and is under control. One tired sailor and the liner doesn't stop. The rowboat might, but not the steamer. Without a breeze, the best of sailboats wouldn't get far. But the liner, with its captain, its navigated course, its sound engines and adequate fuel, plows on steadily, majestically towards its destination. There go the ships, yes, and there go men's lives. My life, your life. What kind of life is it? Let's ask ourselves a question or two. Are we sailing aimlessly, perhaps helplessly through life? If you must answer yes, then I invite you to turn to Christ today and to let His power become yours. When God comes into men's lives, as He has into mine, He provides the spiritual power required to cross the seas of life. His promise is, He bringeth them into their desired haven, and the promises of God are sure to them that believe. The Apostle John, in his Gospel, declares, "But as many as received Him, to them gave He power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on His name." You see, men's greatest need is for a Savior, a Redeemer, a deliverer from sin, and such a Savior is Jesus Christ. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to every one that believeth. Rowboats, sailboats, steamships, yes, there go the ships. And I hope we will all learn the lessons they teach us, for surely life is a journey, and heaven should be our heart. And now to you and to everyone everywhere, the Salvation Army sends again its three-word benediction, God bless you. We hope that you will join us again when, by God's help, we will seek to learn more of the gospel and of Him who is in very truth the living Word.